To 6 grounded outlet adapter is the solution to this problem. Leviton's duplex to 6 grounded outlet adapter converts one duplex outlet into 6 outlets and comes with a 2-year warranty. Visit Hardware Hank today for your electrical outlet solutions.
It's got a lot more going for you with Hank, Hardware Hank.
Friday Night Live, brought to you by the Union Bank. The Union Bank offers free internet banking at theunionbank.com and toll-free telephone banking at 888-873-2902. Stop in at any of their 3 locations to learn more about the services they provide. Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC. And now, Friday Night Live.
Live from the DSN Radio Ranch, this is Friday Night Live on Fox Sports Radio 1410. I'm Jim, along with Jeff and the Stack Attack. Our special guest for this segment is Don Perreault, lead singer for Psycho Sister. Don, welcome to Fox Sports Radio 1410 and Friday Night Live.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Doing very, very well, Don. Stack Attack here. Just thank you so much for joining us. An exciting week for you. You got the new album, Shiver. The new single is Skeleton. We're going to hear that in just a little while in Chicago, and actually in your hometown, so that's a very, very cool thing. So to talk about everything that's been going on this week, and to quote the great Chris Farley, it's exciting.
Well, we are really excited. The CD became available this week. It's on iTunes and Amazon, and, you know, we are signed now with DSN Music. And we started the Terror Tour last night in Indiana. That went over pretty well. Tonight we're in Chicago. As you can probably hear in the background, I'm sitting out in front of the club. And then tomorrow night we'll be in Addison, Illinois. Next weekend, Pennsylvania, and then Ohio.
Yeah, that sounds like a big tour coming up. Do you know how many cities you're going to be taking in when all is said and done, as we're on night 2 of how many nights?
How many cities? Well, we're actually doing 5. Yeah, so we're doing 3 shows this weekend and then 2 next weekend.
Oh, very cool, very cool. And it's a Midwest tour. I was actually going to ask if you're going to be coming anywhere in the North Dakota, South Dakota area. I'd love to come check out a show, but maybe it's a little bit far for me to drive. I don't know.
Yeah, down the road, we are looking to expand outwards, you know, from where our home base in Chicago. And we are talking about possibly Arizona and L.A., and Las Vegas, maybe over the winter, putting a tour together there. And who knows, you know, maybe North Dakota's down the road.
Don, this is Jeff, and I want to ask you this question. How long has Psycho Sister as a group been intact? And give us a little bit of background information on the members of your group.
Well, all of us collectively have had pretty, you know, long background musically. My husband, Mark, is the guitar player, and we've had, you know, a few bands over the years. Jerome Allen, our bass player, has been in several bands. He's actually been a working musician, and he's actually a music teacher. He teaches guitar, bass guitar, and our drummer, Scott, is the same. He's been in several bands. We actually formed Psycho Sister, I want to say July of last year, but we found Jerome in December. So since December, I would say it pretty well has gelled, you know, pretty cohesively. So I guess the current lineup, we're not quite a year old.
Oh, fresh and clean, and hey, brand new, just like the new album. Again, that is Shiver, available on iTunes, Amazon.com, and several other outlets. Talking with Don Perreault from Psycho Sister, DSN artist. And Don, this might sound like kind of a silly question, but you're doing all these tours now. What exactly goes into setting up a set list? I know since you got the new album out this week, do you want to say, hey, we're going to hit all of our new songs heavy, especially Skeleton, or do you start with the classics, or how do you arrange that?
Well, we always play, you know, all our own music on our set list. So we typically start off with Carnage. That kind of gets the audience going. And then we usually follow up with Skeleton. We usually do anywhere from 11 to 17 songs, depending on how long, you know, the club needs us to play. And, yeah, we always do the whole, pretty much the whole CD, along with a few other songs that are on the CD.
There you go. I've always kind of been very, very curious as an amateur aspiring, musician. Not terribly aspiring, but aspiring a little bit, as in I sing some karaoke here and there. But that's very, very interesting to see how you pick your set list. Now, as far as how many places you played all over the country, I know in your previous bands and things like that. Do you have a particular venue or a city that's like, hey, I really love playing here. This show went awesome. Or is there something special maybe about the hometown?
Basically, Chicago. We love Chicago. My husband and I, we played all over Chicagoland, you know, in previous bands, and you know, there's just something about the city. I mean, it's just so alive. We don't mind playing the suburbs, but really the city is where it's at for us as bands. And we just really feel like this is where we are really received very well, too. Chicago, this is where they like to hear original music.
Yeah, Chicago, obviously one of the biggest cities in the United States, third largest, and probably the biggest as far as a sports town goes. And Don, of course, us being Fox Sports Radio 1410, I got to ask you, being a Chicago native, is there a particular football team with a particular coach that you might have followed growing up and might be a fan of these days?
Well, when I was growing up, I did follow the Cubs. And maybe that's not, there's always that war between the Sox and the Cubs, if you're a Sox fan or a Cubs fan. But my dad always watched the Cubs, and it was pretty typical on a weekend for there to be a Cubs game playing. And, he had Harry Carey announcing. And, so I guess I have good memories, of that. So I would say if there were any team in Chicago that I have particular fondness for, I would have to say it's the Chicago Cubs. And hopefully people listening won't start throwing things at me. But, yeah, we love the Cubs.
Nothing wrong with that. Dare I say, I don't mean to be insulting, but the lovable losers in the National League, I can certainly feel your pain a little bit. I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, and they've certainly had their shares of, I guess, coming up short in big opportunities, much like the Cubbies have now. Are you a big Chicago Bears fan? I was going to do a whole Ditka thing if you are.
Yeah, the Bears, if you're from Chicago, obviously you're going to support the teams. We are a big sports town here, and, everybody loves the Bears. The Blackhawks, you name it, we have some great teams here.
Don, this is Jim. Earlier in the interview, you indicated that at your on tour you like to cover the songs that you write. Which I think is great. But tell me a little bit about some of the ideas or events that served as an inspiration for some of your music.
Well, I tend to be intrigued with the human psychology. I'm not going to say every song I write, but usually the lyrics that I write are probably relate to something that I experienced, or maybe a person I knew, or just a story I read. Skeleton especially is my take on, I've always loved reading, like, true crime stories, and, I'm kind of intrigued with, like, people like Lizzie Borden, you wonder what really went on. Was it a mental illness? Was it just an evil disposition, and just kind of got on the train of thought of, like, the thought processes that go through the head of a serial killer. And it's like, well, I've heard there's compulsions and there's, like, all sorts of weird things that go on in their minds. So skeletons, I kind of got thinking of the whole phrase skeleton in the closet. And when Mark came up with the riff, it just really seemed to lend itself. It just popped in my head, the chorus just came to me. And I was like, okay, I was thinking about that. The idea of a skeleton in your closet is like a dark secret. Well, obviously a serial killer's got dark secrets, and, the skeleton in the closet, in terms of literal sense of, like, wow, maybe there's a dead body in the closet. So it just kind of all came together. And typically, I kind of like the bizarre and quirky things, so I think that sometimes it comes out in, some of the lyrics I write, or a snippet of something that I saw. Sometimes the songs just seem to write themselves. There are times just little snippets that come together, and then somebody will come up with a riff, and it'll be like, wow, this is it.
Are you a writer who, upon seizing upon an idea, is able to sit down and write it in one fell swoop, or do you have to revisit it several times over a period of many days or weeks?
Well, I always keep a little, like, notebook, and because I am pretty busy most of the day, every day, and sometimes a phrase will come to mind, and I'll think, wow, that's kind of interesting, and I'll jot it down so I don't forget it. And then when I have time to sit and think about it, then, yeah, I can, once I get hooked into, like, a theme or an idea of a lyric, then I can pretty well sit down and finish it out. There's been times where I've come up with, like, a paragraph, and then it's like, wow, I like this, and then I'll come back to it. So sometimes it just all comes out at once, but yeah, I can sit down and pretty well make myself come up with the rest of it when I need to, but that's kind of the process with me.
Yeah, and I was actually Don Stack Attack here again. I was going to ask you about the writing process. Now, when you go to lay out an album, do you kind of think of it like, hey, I'm going to write this song, then I'm going to write that song, or do you kind of think about, okay, hey, I got this song, now I'm going to maybe write songs that'll like kind of gel or have a flow with one song I've already written, or how does your writing process work as far as setting up an entire album?
When we put Psycho Sister together, we knew that we wanted to go into a heavier direction. We knew that, and again, wanted to come up with a name that was catchy, that was kind of, a little something that might grab you. Psycho Sister popped in my head for some reason, and I thought, well, there's a theme, that we can have fun with. I'm a huge fan of Alice Cooper, and I love the idea of, how Alice Cooper is like its own persona, you know what I mean? So I don't know that we actually sit down and go, well, let's write songs that are all about this subject, but because I do tend to think along those lines in a lot of ways, I do tend to think of, Psycho Sister, this theme, but I don't know if I really stick to a theme. And again, sometimes the songs just write themselves. It's kind of weird. My husband had a riff one day. I had written some lyrics that I really liked, but really hadn't thought of any kind of a melody for them. And about probably a week later, he came up with the riff, and it was like, the song just wrote itself. It was like, wow. It's like, I've got these words that match perfectly with what you're playing. Sometimes I like when it happens that easily. Other times it's more of a process where, because my husband's a total shredder, and he'll come up with, like, a string of these fantastic riffs. It's like, well, these are all really great riffs, but how do we structure this into a song, And then I'll come up with, like, okay, here's my lyrics, and let's see if we can't build on this a little bit, and structure it out.
Don, this is Jeff again, and this question has nothing to do with the songwriting process per se, but as you launch this Midwest tour, obviously it's going to increase your band's visibility. So what hopes and aspirations do you and your fellow band members have regarding this tour springboarding you to bigger and better things in the future?
Well, we love writing music, and we love performing music. I feel very blessed to be able to be out there at all as an original band. It is harder for original bands, especially, in some of the areas that we're in. But I think that what I'd really like to see is people enjoy the music enough to want to buy it. And, we try to make the songs catchy so that, maybe you walk away humming the song, and it's catchy. We'd like to see if maybe we could do good with the sales, and to where maybe it would enable us to expand out more into touring into more areas. I guess ultimately I'd really love to just see people want to buy the music, and just because they really enjoy it. Maybe it would be kind of nice if it got picked up maybe by a movie or something, you know what I mean, on a soundtrack would also be awesome. But ultimately, when we love to play live, we love to see when the fans are enjoying the music, and that's really very gratifying. But yeah, I guess as far as a band, we do try to also treat this like a business, and we would like to see some sales. I guess that would be any band's ultimate goal, is to try to make, we don't really care if we become multimillionaires, but it would be nice to be able to do it for a living, and this be the only thing that we would have to do would be a nice thing.
If I understood you correctly, you are the principal lyricist as well as lead singer for Psycho Sister. My question is, are you also the principal arranger, or do you turn to your husband or other members of the group to come out?
Yeah, as far as that goes, it really depends on the song, but ultimately, we like to say Psycho Sister songs are written by Psycho Sister. It's not like, well, sometimes it'll be a riff that Mark comes up with, and then he and I might sit down with some lyrics and arrange it out and then bring it to the band. Sometimes we have practice, and he'll play the riff with the guys, and then they'll kind of arrange it out, record it down for me, and then I'll listen to it and add the lyrics later. Or, for example, Jerome, our bass player, he pretty well had that all arranged out. It just needed, the guys to prepare their lines and the lyrics. And so, and Dreams of Fortune is the song that our drummer brought to the table. So, they're all of us write, and again, it just depends. Sometimes we'll just have what I call like blurbs of music, and we just need to sit down and, get them down. And we have, so many of those right now. We've been so busy, we just haven't been able to sit down and finish them out. But, yeah, we've always got something on the back burner that needs to be worked on. But I would say it's a very collective effort.
Yeah, so you got a lot of aces in the hole. And Don, I want to remind everyone one more time, of course, Don Perreault, the lead singer of Psycho Sister, with the new album released on DSN Music called Shiver. The single is called Skeleton. Don, we're going to hear that in just a moment, but want to thank you once again for taking time out of your busy touring schedule going on here stage in the matter of minutes in Chicago. So thank you so much for joining us on Friday Night Live. And hey, everyone, go buy the album. Again, that's Shiver, available on iTunes, Amazon.com, and many more outlets. Don, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
It was our pleasure. Once again, that was Don Perreault, the DSN recording artist, lead singer of the band Psycho Sister. Once again, the new album is Shiver, available now on iTunes, was released earlier this week, available on iTunes, Amazon.com, many more. Go buy it today. And if you want a little bit of a taste of what they sound like, here is their single, Skeleton, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1410 and Friday Night Live.
This is Dawn Perreault from Psycho Sister, and this is our track, Skeleton, on Fox Sports Radio.
I hear the moon, it calls my name as I pull back the curtain. It tells me things to ease the pain because my mind is hurting. I feel the pressure building me because my soul is needing. I don't know why there's no relief until I see them bleeding. There's a skeleton in my closet. There's a skeleton